Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Mark Watkins, a former Chick-fil-A executive turned operations strategist who helps leaders build high-performing teams and systems that scale. With a background spanning military service, public safety tech, and multi-unit restaurant leadership, Mark brings a rare blend of discipline, insight, and real-world experience. He now runs Operator Solutions Hub, where he partners with operators to turn culture into a competitive edge and systems into sustainable growth. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here. So happy that you joined us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into what you do, and what made you stay.
So I exited what I call corporate America after about 18 years in software development. And while I had done other things prior to that, that was really what I was doing prior to discovering Chick-fil-A. And I left that space because I was just burned out with the merger and acquisition cycle and just kind of felt limited in what I could do from a growth standpoint. And I didn't really have a plan for what was next. I just knew I needed to step away from that environment. And during a period of, discovery, after that, I had a friend who was a Chick-fil-A operator who said, "Hey, I know you're looking for something, but it may not be this, but I wanted to at least mention to you, I'm looking to grow my leadership team. And, I wanted to see if you'd be interested in joining." And so it really immediately just sounded like the right thing. It resonated. Now, for context, I had never worked in a restaurant in my life. I didn't know anything about the food industry. The closest I had gotten to hospitality was working a front desk in college at a hotel. But what I quickly learned was it was the place that I would grow the most and change for the better in ways that I had never really experienced in the past. And I came into Chick-fil-A with a very rigid background and mindset and was very truth oriented, very accountability heavy, just from the military and police, and even corporate America had some rigidity to it that just didn't quite resonate in that context at Chick-fil-A. And I was open to hearing growth, open to growing and hearing feedback. And what I quickly learned was that in an environment like that, it was very people centric. And I was not used to that type of mindset. And so the more I opened up to that, the more I softened to that style of leadership. And so I attribute Chick-fil-A and the 6 years I spent in the store to developing me, making me the version of who I am today that I don't think I would have ever reached outside of that process that Chick-fil-A kind of put onto me. And so at Chick-fil-A, as most people probably know, it's a franchise model. Chick-fil-A has plenty of, tens of thousands of applicants every year, and they have a pretty strenuous process for selecting operators. But at the end of the day, they're raising up a local owner operator to run a franchise in a community. And as someone who didn't really know about Chick-fil-A when I began working there, I quickly learned that a lot of the things that I expected to get from Chick-fil-A weren't available. The processes, the systems, the resources, the tools that I needed for people development, for training, for all these things. And it sounds very counterintuitive because Chick-fil-A comes across as a very systemized, process-driven place. And at the end of the day, it is. But one of the things that I think makes makes Chick-fil-A so successful in the local communities is that they give the operator the autonomy to figure out the details and nuances of their business. Chick-fil-A really is looking at maintaining three things, in my opinion: their brand, the extension of their brand. They protect that with certain guardrails. The guest experience, they want that to be consistent no matter where you go. They want the guest experience to be the same. And then the food, obviously, is the third one: quality food that's served hot and fast. Everything else, even how you implement those three things, they give the autonomy to the operator. And so as I was growing as a leader and moving through different roles in the store, I began developing tools that I needed to do these things in the store. And about 2 years ago, just began thinking about, okay, how can I take these systems and processes and solutions to other operators? And that's where Operator Solutions Hub was born. It was really a desire to amplify the impact that operators were having on their team, with their guests, and in their communities, but in ways that would help them fast track past a lot of the normal obstacles that operators face. Because many of these operators, like myself, never worked in the store. They never worked at Chick-fil-A. They're coming with business acumen and other things that are translatable, but they are struggling to, get that traction that they want. And so Operator Solutions Hub exists to partner with operators to give them access to tools and solutions that are customized for their context in their store without, changing the culture and the values that the operator is holding up, and really partnering with them to add value to what they're doing.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you went through quite a transformation and growth personally.
I did.
To get to where you are today.
Yes.
How does the culture, is it on a Chick-fil-A level, or is it something that you have built out within your business for, owner operators, that culture aspect? What sets your system apart, or Chick-fil-A's systems apart, in order to really maximize the operational efficiency of the team, everybody being happy at the store? What is it? What's the special sauce?
So there's definitely a layer when it comes to culture. There's the overarching Chick-fil-A culture. That's the part of the guest experience that draws people to a Chick-fil-A, whether they're in their hometown or on the road traveling. When they think Chick-fil-A, they have a certain expectation about the way they're going to be treated. And then below that is the operator's culture layer, and they get to identify what they want that to be. A lot of Chick-fil-A's are in a hometown, like they're the only one. It's a very much kind of a hometown vibe. It's very intimate relationships, a lot of regulars. And then you have stores that are on the highway that maybe don't see the same people every day. And so I think allowing the operator the space to create the culture that they want for their team in their community. And I believe that the guest experience starts with the team member experience. And so if we're not creating a healthy environment in the store for the team, it's going to be felt by the guests, and that's going to affect, the ability to retain guests, to bring guests back, to give them that experience. The guest satisfaction scores will drop, their accuracy drops, everything, all the metrics just drop when the guest experience is missing. And so I like to focus on the things that makes Chick-fil-A different, the hospitality differentiators that Chick-fil-A has identified. And when we focus on those, we can exceed the guest expectations. I believe since COVID, the guest experience bar is being raised every year. And so we have to anticipate that and be ahead of the guests when it comes to expectations. Don't get upset when, the guest has a certain expectation. Just continually leading into that. And I think that the teams buy into the culture. I think it's important for an operator, any business owner, to have mission, visions, and values. One of the common engagements I do with operators is like a mission, vision, and value workshop, where we sit down and work through and just kind of brainstorm what it is they want about their business. The mission, what you're doing every day, the vision, that future desired state, and then the values are how you execute those, and then getting the team's buy-in, and then just letting it permeate through everything that's done in the store. And when it becomes authentic, the guests can tell. And when the team members buy into it, they're perpetuating that mission, vision, and values. And I think it's the authenticity that really allows that deep connection with the guests when they know that you're there to give them a good experience.
Absolutely. It really comes down to people, the ambiance, and the performance of the team, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yep. And a lot of Chick-fil-A's have dedicated leaders for marketing. Sometimes it's called sales and brand growth, but it's really about creating an environment in the store to engage with the community in a way that's like, okay, come for food, but we're going to do some things. We'll have activities or special days where we're creating an environment where families want to come, where Truett Cathy, who's the founder of Chick-fil-A, said one time that a lot of times people don't come to the store because they're hungry. They just want to have a good experience and be around other people. And I think creating these kind of in-store events is what we call them, where the community can come in, families can come in, whether it's a trivia night or, a craft night or a pictures with Santa or whatever it is that will draw people into the store, creating that environment where people want to come. And then when they're there, they feel comfortable and welcomed. And it creates a moment or a memory that wants them to keep coming back.
Absolutely. And how does that impact and all of the whole experience impact ROI?
I think when it comes to those type of engagements, really what you're looking at is guest retention. There's this idea of building trust with your community. And if you are struggling with speed of service, you're struggling with order accuracy, your guest experience scores are low, taste and temperature scores are low, the trust with your guests begins to go lower and lower and lower. And at some point, they're not going to come back and they're going to tell people about it. And so I think when it comes to, looking at it for a return, the investment is creating the culture with your team. And sometimes it takes, a little bit of time. It takes money to build out what it is we stand for that permeates through the team. The team's bought in, and then they can extend that to the guests. So the upfront investment is in identifying, okay, these are the things that will get the return that we're looking for. And I believe it's a people first model. When you start looking at numbers or metrics first, you're going to maybe be there temporarily, but not long term. It's always people over profits. If you get the people bought in, if you make your investments in developing people, if you make your investments in identifying what your mission, vision, values are to create that culture, and then your team's bought in, then you begin building trust with the guests. Your speed of service goes back up. Your order accuracy increases. Your guest satisfaction levels increase. And you make investments in those experiences, whether it's time or money or both, and you develop a team that is an extension of what you want as an operator. Instead of one person, advancing these things, you multiply that and you have your entire team advancing these things. And it does take time. It takes training, but I call it intentionally adding bloat to the process so that you're, for a time, doing things maybe less efficiently, but you're investing in a longer term look, and the return you get on that, and from the way I see it, is the guest satisfaction, and that results in retention and return visits and more satisfied guests.
I love that, people over profits. And I think that's something that really sets your experience apart in terms of what you went through in the beginning and the burnout and the, being in corporate America, which now you're creating people-centric spaces.
Yes.
And cultures within businesses. And I think that really can be replicated, that can be taught, that can be built into, what Michael Gerber calls the franchise model. What have you learned in terms of that franchise model that you can, tell our audience that they can implement, even if they don't have a franchise, but maybe they can use that franchise model and systems model in their operations in order to really get the biggest ROI? Something
that's very front of mind, I was actually working on an article or a blog post this morning around this idea of what I'm calling a mirror manager. So basically, with any new business owner, the tendency is going to be to do everything yourself. It's just easier to do it. Sometimes it's out of necessity, but they never break from this pattern of just doing everything. And what it results in is your team is holding up your standards and doing the things that you want to do when you're present. And when you step out, nobody's reflecting that standard. And so the team just does whatever. And instead of investing in systems that document the standards you want, where you're the standards, then the systems become the standard and you can over time step out. And so I think with a lot of new business owners, restaurant owners, the thing that I focus on in my business is trying to get that operator out of the Superman mode where they throw the cape on and do everything, moving them, transitioning them to only focusing on the things that they can do that nobody else can do. And so it's this inventory of what does your day look like? What are the decisions you're making, the tasks that you're doing that someone else could do? And you begin to identify those, document what you know what's in your head, create a system, delegate that task to somebody, let them test it out. If there's gaps, then that you update your system to get to a point of steady state with that system, and then you do it with something else. And so it's this idea of, as soon as you can, begin lifting up other people. I personally believe that people become ready when you promote them versus waiting till they're ready. So you're not going to always have the perfect, fully equipped person to promote. Go ahead and promote them. Let them become ready in that process. They're going to rise to the occasion. And so it's making early investments in people, developing them, giving them responsibility, help them build confidence, and then handing them tasks that the operator can take off of their plate. Because at the end of the day, you want to create systems that anybody can run, and you have to go through the process of documenting and handing those off. Because what I want the operator to do is get to a point where the things that they're doing in their day are the things that nobody else in the store can do. It's these higher level visionary relationships in the community that no one else can do. But you can't do those if you're doing payroll, or you're opening the store, or closing the store, or a million other things. So I think, especially when you have, an overarching brand in a franchise model, there's certain standards that you're held to. I think it's even more important to focus on the things that only you can do. And no matter the context, you're going to be more efficient, you're going to be more profitable, you're going to have more opportunity to grow if everybody's doing the thing that nobody else can do. If you're a training director, you need to be the only one doing the training things. I don't need to be doing training. So that's one of the things that I think too makes Chick-fil-A so successful, is in a rush when things are really busy, everybody's doing one thing. If you've been in a Chick-fil-A and you see all the different roles, there's just dozens of people in the store and they're all doing one thing. If you cut that in half and everybody's doing two things, all the efficiency, the experiences, they're just brought down by that. So
that's mind blowing. I know that. I mean, I've never been, as an Orthodox Jew eating just kosher, I've never been in one. So you're my ears into that world. That's just absolutely fascinating. And I love what you said about allowing somebody to step into the role that they've been given, right? It's the training and the belief in them that will hold them, because not everybody has that belief in themselves. They'll feel afraid, like stage fright. They'll be afraid to take on that role, to make a mistake, maybe anger somebody or mess up, but to create a culture where it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes.
It's okay that we all have bad days. I think that is the culture that you're talking about, building a safe and secure environment that ultimately impacts how they feel, how they operate, and the bottom line, and how the customers feel, and if they want to come back again and again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so creating that culture that scales, what kind of leadership tips can you give other operators to be that best leader and guide to others who are kind of growing into that role?
I think when I hear the word leadership, I always like to add servant in front of that. So a servant leader. And it's kind of counterintuitive to the way a lot of people think about leadership. A lot of times when people see a leader, they think of the team serving that leader. For me, the simplest visual is a pyramid, a traditional or triangle, a traditional triangle was the point at the top. That's the way a lot of people see leaders, the team on the bottom. If you invert that with a point down, where the leader's still at the point, the team's at the top, then the leader is serving the team. And I think it has a lot to do with just obvious humility on the part of the leader. They're lifting up the team. They're serving the team. When something great happens, it's because of the team. A lot of leaders who look at the role as a reward for their past performance will generally be that first type of leader. They feel like they're elevated into that role because of who they are and what they've done. When you look at being a leader as a responsibility versus a reward, and you feel the weight of the people that you're leading, then the team begins to have trust in you and believe like you want what's best for them. You have their best interest in mind. And so I think that any good leader who's looking at it from a servant leader standpoint is trying to help the team grow, help the team be better. They celebrate the wins publicly. I think that type of leader coaches privately, they correct privately so as not to humiliate anyone or create dissension. But if I'm in that role in a store where I'm a leader and I have a team that I'm responsible for, I'm constantly looking for who's next, who's hungry for growth. And there's a lot of people who aren't. They're content where they are, and that's perfectly fine because it takes all different types of people to run a team. But I try to be mindful of who's hungry, who wants the opportunity. And you mentioned this, previously. It's just like this environment where it's okay to try. It's okay to try and fail. It's okay to try and succeed. And I think confidence builds confidence. And a lot of times people don't have a context where they can ever experience something that builds confidence in them. And that's the type of environment I think where you can thrive, create really high performing teams when the team feels like their leader has their back. They're not going to be ridiculed for trying something or suggesting something. We all come at it from the standpoint of, if it makes us better, let's try it. If it doesn't, we tried it and now we know that's feedback too. But from a leadership standpoint, I think those are some key elements. I think everything can be systemized. I'm a really big systems guy. And so even from people development, from the way that you develop people, that can be systemized. And I like to systemize things, especially in the development space, because developing others is also a skill that leaders need to learn. And if I'm the only one developing people, then that next level leader never has that experience, and maybe they are promoted later and then they have no experience developing people. And so I like the idea of like one level down development. So you have a manager, director, a team leader, even under guidance. And that seems like a big task to people a lot of times. And when you entrust somebody with that, it gives great return when it comes to confidence.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And even if, ultimately people don't end up staying in that role, in that job, and they move on, let's say, they're young and they're in college and they're, working there through college and they go on to the next role, you've literally instilled in them the confidence for the rest of their life. You've literally changed their life so that they approach everything in the future through a different lens. And in terms of confidence, in terms of leadership, in terms of showing up with being prepared and excited to learn and to grow, instead of the toxic work culture of, everybody talking behind each other's backs, or somebody messes up and then, they're put down for it. So these are all really important tools in I would say, the nuance of the operations, so that ultimately it can work in the most efficient way possible, so that the customer experience top notch and like none other. I can imagine that your specific stores that you work with are really next level.
I hope so.
And with that, can you leave our audience with your final thoughts in terms of your impact, the legacy that you're wanting to leave, and what's in store for you? What's next?
For me, the reason that I pursued this next iteration at Chick-fil-A is because I saw that I developed a lot of tools and resources that I was using personally, and the growth that I experienced while I was at Chick-fil-A. One of those areas that I began leaning into and really enjoy is event facilitation. So like leadership events. And we created a rhythm in my store that I'm now in the early stages of taking to other operators, of either leadership retreats or summits, which I look at as a 1 day or 2 day event. But I think there's tremendous value in getting out of the store, out of context, out of uniform, in a space where you can relax. And when I lead these events, we're doing some team building type stuff. It's always fun. There's always laughter. There's usually tears. But it allows me to sit down with an operator and say, hey, what's important to you in this season? And then coming with an outside voice, maybe even with a message that the operator's given 100 times, but there's power in an outside voice. And what I'm trying to perpetuate here in this space, and it's relative to any context, any restaurant that has a group of leaders, is making an investment in your team in a way that you haven't thought about. And I think that this offsite, whether it's a half a day, a full day, a weekend, it's going to pay incredible returns with your team, because your team grows closer together. It creates a level of intimacy and trust. And so for me, that's really where I want to go in the future. I'm able to do some of that now. I hold 5 or 6 of these events, a year right now. But I think there's opportunity for new owner operators to do this with a team is like a way of setting a standard. It's also very applicable for a mature team that's just kind of maybe beginning to get burned out to like do a reset. And it's a tremendous experience. I've not had any team go through this and say, oh, that was a waste of time. It's the contrary. And so I think I want to challenge business owners, restaurant owners to think about investing their team in a way that they haven't before. An online course or something like that you share with the team, or you bring somebody in the store for, a 2-hour workshop. Those aren't necessarily, wrong, but there's this other experience that I think gives operators a competitive advantage, because at the end of the day, I like these because they're helping build a stronger team, and a team that enjoys working with each other, understands why people think the way they think, is going to be unstoppable. And so that's, where I am in just the consulting space. I like the consulting. It's a good way to begin building relationships, to show the value that I can add in the store, and then ultimately, lead into these other events later as the team begins to grow.
I love that. Creating an unstoppable team. That would sum up for me everything that you do.
Yeah, I love that. I'll use that.
Yes, absolutely. It's your tagline from now on. This was amazing. So insightful. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. I am looking forward to what you do next and watching you as you create unstoppable teams. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. It was my pleasure to be on. Appreciate it.